Game of the week in the Big Ten. Game of the week in college football. And I don't know if either of these guys feel good about their teams. They are Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes and Zach Seyko of Locked On Nittany Lions, frequent guests here on the show. Zach, I want to start with you. I'm picking Penn State to lose for a third straight week because, you know what, I'm too far down the rabbit hole at this point. But I didn't think they'd win this game coming into the year. I think Penn State has been good. I think Ohio State has mostly, though not entirely, been good. I seem to trust Ohio State more. Maybe it's the rivalry factor that James Franklin is 1-9 against Ohio State in his tenure. Is that the only reason that I should be confident picking the Buckeyes?
Spencer, let me hold your feet to the fire. I think you were going to pick the Buckeyes regardless because you picked Penn State to lose to West Virginia. You picked Penn State to lose against...
I will correct you there. I picked them to beat West Virginia. I thought they would win and cover.
I'm thinking Drake at Locked On Big 12.
Yes, there we are.
You had. I digress because this is Penn State, Ohio State, right? I'm in the same boat as you. Actually, I'm picking Ohio State too, as the Penn State podcast show host. I mean, look, I don't get where this. Well, Ohio State is disappointing this season. I mean, maybe because they have the $20 million NIL roster, but the only blemish on the schedule is a 1-point loss to Oregon on the road in a game that they should have won, but Chip Kelly couldn't call plays in the final 60 seconds correctly.
You're correct.
And then they don't get up for a Nebraska team a week later after they lose that highly emotionally charged game. So I'm just not buying it. When I look at this game in terms of positional matchups, I think about how Penn State has not faced a wide receiver core like Ohio State's. Jeremiah Smith is a future top 10. Honestly, he'd be drafted top 10 right now after his true freshman season in the NFL draft. Emeka Egbuka is at least a day two. If you're getting him in round 3, that's insane value. And Carnell Tate is starting to come into his own. And Penn State, outside of A.J. Harris, who would win maybe 50% of those matchups in man-to-man coverage, Jalen Kimber can't cover any of those guys. Davian Collins, Zion Tracy, Elliott Washington, all those guys are good football players, but they're not Jeremiah Smith, Emeka Egbuka, and even Carnell Tate good. So I look at that Ohio State wide receiver matchup against Penn State secondary as the difference in this game.
Jay Stevens, Locked On Buckeyes. You feeling good about Ohio State this week after a shaky performance against Nebraska? I don't think Nebraska is a bad football team. That game told me more about Nebraska, frankly, than Ohio State. I thought the Buckeyes would win big. It was not a great outcome for Ryan Day and company, but it wasn't a disastrous outcome either, and it was probably the worst game Ohio State has played this season.
It was definitely the worst game they played this season. If you looked at Ryan Day after the game in the press conference, he looked like he was dejected, like they lost. And I'm thinking, yeah, we ripped Ohio State for a lot of things, and I was very upset with the way they played in that game, but they won. So you got to think as a coach, you're proud of the win. But he was like, we couldn't run the ball. And then people were asking about the backup left tackle that was having issues blocking and missed some assignments in that game. I am not confident in Ohio State this weekend. I do believe, like Zach said about the receivers on the outside, I don't know if there's a team in the country that can stop or even slow down Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, even Carnell Tate if he gets into the mix. They don't really use a tight end much in the passing game, but I think this is a game where they need to. But my issue is schematically, it's the coaching. It's also the players. Like, you're not getting up for a Nebraska team. I get Nebraska is Nebraska. To me, that they're not really that good. They're like average, maybe maybe slightly above average. But Ohio State made Nebraska look like they could beat Ohio. They could have won that game last weekend. I got Penn State winning this game, man. I have been thinking about that for a while. And Spencer, I think if the offensive line were fully healthy, I'd be more comfortable. But they can't block right now. You're talking about moving your left guard to left tackle, who has already been a little shaky this year, and then putting somebody else at left guard. That might play right into Penn State's plan to get pressure on Will Howard. I don't have faith this weekend that Ohio State will win this game.
Do we need to dub this matchup the Misery Bowl in 2024? Penn State's picking Ohio State. Ohio State is picking Penn State. And look, one reason I'm confident in the Buckeyes is the point that you guys have made with the wide receivers. A stat to underscore that: Ohio State is the only team so far this year, and I think this will continue when Oregon plays Michigan this week. They're the only team to throw for 200 yards against Oregon's defense this season. No other quarterback passing tandem, however you want to look at it, has hit the 200-yard mark against Oregon, and I was impressed with Will Howard in that game. And yeah, this is a road environment, but I think having that game at Autzen under their belt helps Ohio State in this spot. So let's flip for you guys just a little bit and go to the optimistic side. Zach, Penn State wins this game if they do what?
Yeah, it's not impossible. I don't want to frame it that way because I have this game 27-24 Ohio State over Penn State. So if the ball bounces a different way, you get an additional turnover. Like, that's the difference in this game. The +1 turnover, but neither of these teams are notorious for being carefree with the football. If Penn State wants to win, Andy Kotelnicki and Tom Allen have to put the game plans of their lives together. These are why these coordinators were brought in, specifically Andy Kotelnicki. Like, Penn State got a head start on this season by firing Mike Yurcich after the Michigan game back in 2023. So Andy Kotelnicki was brought in for this reason because they were a competent offense away from making last year's college football playoff. It is not crazy to say that they had a national championship caliber defense with Manny Diaz a year ago, but they had an offense that was so inept, so vanilla, that they looked like classic 10-2 James Franklin, where they had the elite components. They have it this year, but Ohio State even upped the ante. The difference, so Penn State, Andy Kotelnicki running Drew Aller and Bo Prabula, running that 2-quarterback system that worked at Kansas, it's there on tape, but not intensively, selectively. So Ohio State's they have to prepare for both of them if you're Jim Knowles as the defensive coordinator, and then Tom Allen's got to lay out a game plan that hasn't been put on tape, period. I expect a lot of zone coverage because I don't know how you cover those receivers in man-to-man.
Speaking of, Jay mentioned the tight end room isn't used much for the Buckeyes offense. That's not the case for Penn State here, Zach.
I wouldn't be surprised if they run 3 tight ends. I mean, they have 3 capable tight ends with Tyler Warren. I think Tyler Warren might need a hero game type of situation if Penn State is to get that win. But Ohio State is aware that he had 17 catches and 224 yards in one game, not over the span of a few weeks, one game against USC. So if they don't bracket him, then I question Jim Knowles as a defensive end. But that's what I mean with Andy Kotelnicki. He could run 4 tight ends if he really wanted to. And he said that. We will do whatever it takes to win, and I really want to see that on Saturday if you are Penn State. Like, go all in. You were 1-9 in those last 10 games. You absolutely, because if you don't beat Ohio State now, when do you do it? Because I've never seen this Nittany Lion team closer to Ohio State, and I'm still picking the Buckeyes.
Jay, any reason for confidence for the Buckeyes? I mean, what's one thing you think they have to do to win this football game?
There's confidence. Ohio State's getting Lathan Ransom back. It seems like he is trending in the right direction to get back on the field. Missed a game after the bye week a week ago, and that's going to be great for Ohio State as they try to figure out how to slow down Penn State's offense and they're trying to control things. The one thing the Buckeyes got to do to win this game is win the battle in the trenches. Here's the issue. Their offensive line is not getting the job done. So even if they get the job done on the defensive line, which I think defensively the Buckeyes will be fine, my issue is the offensive line. If the Buckeyes can't run like they couldn't do last weekend, they couldn't do in the second half against Oregon, and if they do a bad job of really keeping Will Howard upright and keeping the pocket clean, this game's going to be trending like I think it is. It's going to be Penn State winning the game. I don't have faith, though, that Ohio State's going to be able to pass block consistently, and that's going to impact their ability to run the ball. It also goes into this. I don't know if Ryan Day or Chip Kelly will be able to get the schematics right, get the right scheme out there when the run game. Are they going to do more zone? Will it be more gap scheme? What will they do? Will they try to run Will Howard 10 to 15 times or more quarterback designed runs? Which I think this is a game where you need to do that. I just don't know if they're going to. So it's not a lack of talent. I think Ohio State has more talent than Penn State. My issue is injuries on the offensive line and the coaches' inability to really adjust when they need to.
All right, so they both like their teams to lose this week. I'm going with Jay's team here. I like Ohio State. Watch this. No field goal kickers required. 28 21. I think Ohio State picks up a road win and settles down the chaos, at least for the moment, in the Big Ten championship game picture. Zach Seyko, Locked On Nittany Lions. Jay Stevens, Locked On Buckeyes. Appreciate it, guys. I appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.